Have you ever been watching an episode of the podcast and wondered what's in the mug? Well, we're really proud to be partnering with the amazing folks at Azahar Roast House, located right here in Lowville, New York. Azahar Roast House is a family and community-focused coffee roaster bringing you green coffee exclusively from Colombia. And get this, they always have freshly roasted coffee ready to ship directly to your door. You can order now using the link below and in the description. Be sure to check out their subscription page and have amazing coffee automatically shipped to you every month. Again, that's Azahar Roast House, where coffee meets community and growth, which is what this podcast is all about. To learn more, select the link in the description and order today. All right, folks, we're back with Sheriff Carpinelli. Welcome. I'm glad to have you back. It's been a fun kind of relationship. I feel like we're more than acquaintances, becoming friends now. So that's kind of fun for me.
I'm glad to hear that. I agree with you. Yes, sir.
Yeah,
good. It's nice, and appreciate you having me back. I hope I don't disappoint when I'm down here with you. And
It's amazing because like just the climate that we're in, it's almost like and unfortunately, this is not a political podcast. This is not like the aim of it. It's a lot deeper than that. And at the same time, some stuff is just unavoidable that has to be addressed or talked about, or hard conversations have to be had over. So this is going to be a hard one on that front.
Yes, sir.
So everybody just kind of bear with us, and we'll navigate these waters together.
Right.
In light of recent events, we all know, unless you're living under a rock, the whole Charlie Kirk incident that happened 2 days ago. It is right now Friday, September 12th, and that incident took place on Wednesday, September 10th. I don't even know where to start with that. Just, I guess maybe get your kind of opening, thoughts on it. I have my own thoughts too that we'll just kind of work through together.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. Right off the get-go, first thing you want to think and say is, I really don't. Doesn't matter to me what people out there think, but it's on the other sides, and not to be political, but you know what? Our prayers to his family. Amen. 100%. It's a tragedy what happened.
Yeah.
It's going to take a little while for all of us, to digest, and just and keeping our faith,
Mm-hmm. There's something about, like, as you know, you're in law enforcement. You've been in law enforcement for how many years?
Yeah, a lot of years. A little over 40 right now. Yes, sir.
Okay, a little over 40 years, and I only had 5 years in, but the stuff that you see like on a regular basis is it impacts you, right? But I don't know if it's compartmentalizing, but for me personally, I never really had a hard time with the ultra violent, gruesome nature of things you'd see, and for some reason, the Charlie Kirk thing hit me different.
Mm-hmm.
I've been kind of the last couple of days trying to figure out what that is. It's hard to not see the video. And if you haven't seen the video, I honestly wouldn't recommend it. There's something about the brutality and just the nature of that kind of shook me a little bit, and started to get me thinking, why? I used to do a job that would see that stuff all the time, and maybe it was just repression. Yeah. But I also think that there's something about the weight of maybe who it was, but more than that, what he was doing.
Yes.
That's kind of singular, unique, and special about the American experience. And to see something so
heinous,
devastating.
Yeah.
Kind of shook something to my core. I have some other thoughts too about maybe why it affected me personally, but what do you have to say about that?
In all my years, seeing things happen and watching videos or evidence videos and that, it was just a shame to see that happen on a college campus in front of a lot of young people who've never experienced that kind of brutality right off the bat, and to watch the human being that in front of them fade, and especially from a person that they were talking with that was, loving, God-fearing, patriot, cared about his country, cared about the youth in this country, that they could have a voice to talk with of reason, and all of a sudden to have his silence, that fast in front of them. But I'll tell you one thing though, Brock, it was nice to watch all the campus vigils afterwards, the prayers, the Liberty University getting together and doing what they did. I had the honor to go there to Liberty University to be a speaker one time, and it's just amazing the way the people treated you, how the campus kids were. You didn't get the anti-police rhetoric. Right. It was nice. So it was tough, definitely tough, and I'll tell you something I can kind of identify with here in a little bit. As far as not wanting to see something and you saw it and now you can't get it out of your head. It's there, but I got to put it back.
Yeah. I think that's what partially shook me too. So we're building a deck in my house, and I was out working on the deck. Stephanie was away on a business trip. So I was watching the girls and building the deck at the same time. And my which is definitely the safest way to do things. And my brother had texted me and just said, "Hey, dude, somebody shot Charlie Kirk." And my immediate reaction is okay, he's probably going to be fine. People get shot all the time, right, and survive, and it's okay. And he was like, you're probably going to see the video. And a couple of different people had sent me the video I had seen shortly after that. And yeah, my initial reaction was, that's a rifle. Just the impact, the damage. And my second was, he's going to need a miracle.
Yeah.
I just didn't see any way that, somebody could survive that without some pretty big intervention. And so immediately my thoughts go to, I followed him for probably the better part of 12 years, and watching all of his, since he was very young, starting Turning Point USA, all of these different things. For anybody who doesn't know Charlie Kirk, I feel like I should just give a kind of a brief synopsis here, if I can find it and pull it up for you. Charlie was he's a political commentator. He has a very successful podcast. He's a right-wing figure, conservative figure, outspoken with his faith, outspoken with his values, and outspoken with his desire to fix problems through talking.
Right.
And the fact that somebody would resort to that kind of action to silence a voice is so antithetical to what we believe in this country. This is how we fix our problems. We talk about it. This is the republic. This is the democratic way of figuring out these problems, and hard problems too, Charlie was not an extremist whatsoever. No. Said all very mainline positions, all very commonsensical positions to argue from, and was not willing to back down from hard discussions.
No, he wasn't.
With the intention of love.
Yes.
And that is something that has been completely twisted, I think, all the way leading up to this. Just the way that, people hated him or whatever. There's something to his character that's special. And he also was a founder of a thing called Turning Point USA, which is especially a young generational political movement. Right. Widely influential. I would argue probably a top 5 reason why Donald Trump got elected the second time. Charlie Kirk's influence on campuses was astounding.
Oh yeah.
And then you see the demographics through the election and the shifting, and it's just, I think a direct correlation there. But, yeah, I mean, are you familiar with his work or anything he's done?
Oh yeah, I watched this podcast when I could, alongside everything else I was watching, and I loved his dialogue with people. I mean, he showed exactly what you said, that opposites can sit down, have a conversation, agree to disagree. And so a lot of times in the end, and it came to agreeing with what he taught them. And like I said, he taught them. He didn't do it through propaganda. He didn't do it through force or through any other way. He reasoned.
Right.
He used facts.
Yep.
He used books, knowledge, faith, the Bible, a lot of things. And he found commonality all the time. Well, somehow, some way, and that's not an easy thing to do with some people who have been pulled so far one direction or the other, and their extremism and what they believe, to bring them back to ground zero. To have that conversation. But boy, he would do it many, many times. And it's thank God we had a person like him on this earth for a while to be able to do what he did. And I've heard other comments and other reporters start to talk about, and especially some of the pastors, that he's gone from us physically, but his memory, his teachings, his influence is here forever, and that's one thing that evil will not defeat and hasn't defeated. So, amen for that.
Yeah, and I think that kind of moves into the bigger discussion. When you start to talk about somebody's impact, I guess, influence, some of the stuff that really stood out to me was his ideas on family, his ideas on faith, and how that intertwines first, and then you can move to your community and move outward. So I think part of the reason, getting back to, why it impacted me, was I'm in a super similar point of life. He's 31 when he passed. I'm 34. He was married for, I think it was 4 years. I've been married for 5. He has 2 kids, I think 3 and 1, or close in that range.
That's correct. Yeah.
So do I. And there was something about replaying the video of him at that event on Wednesday wouldn't stop looping in my head, along with another video that circulated with his daughter running up to him at an event. And it's been an emotional couple days. So, you can't help but relate for some reason. I didn't know Charlie. I didn't know Charlie Kirk. A lot of stuff that happens around the country, you don't know these people, but somehow you feel connected to them.
Right.
And I think uniquely in this way it feels more like an attack against core ideals to the country. It feels more of an attack against core values to at least half the country. It feels different.
It does.
And in some sense, you do feel like you know them because you follow them for a long time. Dave Smith, Dave Smith? He's a political commentator as well, actually a libertarian. And he said that a lot of times when you're watching somebody from afar and you watch them a lot, you start to think that you know them.
Right.
Even if you maybe don't actually on a personal level. And then he goes, I've done that and have met people and then actually gotten to know them and realized I did know you. But there was something about that too. I think that pricked people's hearts. He's not a violent man.
No,
he's never hurt a soul. And so you don't agree with his politics. You don't agree with his ideas. Really? This is what we do.
Right.
And the end result, I think, from all of this, and we'll discuss this a little bit more in a little while, is that it will be amplified to levels unimaginable based on a coward's actions.
100%.
So yeah,
I saw again on Facebook. There's as you know, it just blew up with all kinds of stuff. I chose not to say anything. I wanted to wait a few days, and I still haven't put anything on. I took a lesson from Dan Bongino. Give it 24 to 40 hours before you pipe off. And even though maybe the emotion tells you want to, hold on to that. Yeah. And I'm glad that I did. one thing that I did say though is that in the beginning when there was some stuff out there, I said that I made a comment on somebody else's post, and I said, yeah, prayers first. Let's see what happens. I said, but you know, the following days is the time to unleash our passion there, how we felt about the whole thing. So
yeah,
you know,
and there'll be times for all of that. One of Charlie Kirk's, I mean, one of his quotes that actually the governor quoted today was about when things seem fast and chaotic, the most important thing to do is stay grounded and stay, you know, true to your core. And yeah, I mean, that's what we need to do right now. So moving on to the broader national implications, to me shows such a sickness in our society, such a vile online connection that's rotting us.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And so can you speak to that? Like,
sure. I you know, this is one part I don't hold back on. You know, I don't you know, beget anybody that's got a college education. I have a little bit myself, but these major universities have turned into a propaganda machine for the other side. The lies and the repeated lies that students are, you know, so-called taught and have to function under in order to pass, to get a passing grade. And eventually what happens is they start to believe it because they're like, well, I've got to get through this, and they're there for 4 years. And if I don't listen and take in what they're saying, I'm not going to get a degree. And before you know it, you're in the group. That's it. And they don't want to hear any other reason outside of that. Or they really are in fear of retribution from somebody else on campus, from other professors. And it's just that is not the way that the American education institution was started out as and what it was meant to be. It was meant to be a propaganda machine.
Yeah. And I think too, like when you start to look at the political climate, it's so multifaceted why people feel justified to carry out a heinous act like this is indoctrination, lies.
Right.
And so who's responsible for that? Probably we all are to some extent. The news media painting Charlie Kirk for literally the last decade, probably since Trump came into the, you know, political arena. Their supporters are a threat to democracy.
Yeah.
You're the Gestapo. Like, you know, this is a white supremacist. This is a bigot. This is a racist. And if you would look at some of the ridiculous stuff that's going on social media, and luckily there's an off switch
thank God
for social media. You can just shut it off. But some of the stuff that's being said and espoused is completely regurgitated from where they get it from.
You're right.
From their news media, from their professors, from politicians, from wherever. I'm talking about both sides too.
Yeah, we have to throw it in there. You're right. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. You know? And so when we talk about bringing the political climate down or bringing things kind of more reasonable, you know, you hear a lot of both sides of the aisle right now talking about, you know, just completely disavowing this, completely saying that there's no place for it. You know, it's heinous. Well, maybe we should take stock in the things we say before too.
I agree.
Because, you know, if you would look at the rhetoric that's being tossed around and then think about it this way. So this is how I think about it. If you're convinced that somebody is a fascist, if you're convinced that somebody is, enter your buzzword, okay? You have now created justification for these kinds of things, at least in their heart. They feel, okay, I'm doing something good. And that is so irresponsible and so terrifying that we could be at that kind of place. And probably part of why this is shaking everybody too is it's just the feeling of pure evil.
Absolutely is. You know, what you just said about that, you know, brought up, you know, being told that the person's a fascist or, you know, evil, this and that. You know, I got to fall back to my military training. Even though they're in basic training, they're in AIT and any training further from that, you know, with in regards to war and an enemy. Of course, you know, we're told that this country's bad, that military's bad. We're going to have to fight that. But the difference with us and other countries and other people are, is that we don't do it until either that we're ordered to, or until we do see an act of aggression against us first, or against another, human being or another country that cannot defend itself, or that needs the help of the United States. And I wish that young people could be able to have that experience, to be disciplined in their mindset when they're being told that, yeah, this person's a fascist. Well, you show me where. I want to know it. I want to learn it myself instead of just hearing it from you. Show me where to look that up. Show me the facts. Show me the things that person's committed to be called a fascist. Then I might go to the next step. But until then, you keep yourself disciplined, educate yourself, and just don't take for granted what you're hearing.
Yeah, I completely agree. I would argue if you look at Charlie Kirk's life work, and or at least clips that really kind of get down to the heart of what he's doing, why he's doing,
right?
Or why he's doing what he's doing. That's not the man. The man's not there to hate people. It's to speak truth. And that's simply put. And so if the truth doesn't align with your politics, then it becomes that person is a threat, and then everything's on the table.
Yeah.
And I'm very sad for the country. I'm very sad for Charlie. I'm very sad for his family. I'm just devastated by the fact that people in this country think that that's okay.
Right. You should give an example of how could they believe what you're saying, or what we're saying, or what Charlie was saying. And I know that Charlie's has used this in his past, and by no means I am not. So forgive me if I don't get exactly the way it was said. But we talk about the crucifixion of Jesus Christ, and people say, "Well, prove that." Well, there's a book called the Bible on it. There's several paintings on it. There's hundreds and hundreds of years of history on it. So if you don't believe that, well, then that's up to you. But it's there.
Right.
You're challenged by that. How do you look away from it? How do you explain it away? When it comes right down to common sense, you couldn't. Mm-hmm. And that was the frustration, and that still is today. There's frustration for people who aren't, that don't find Christianity the way they like it. But it happened. It's a fact. Yeah. And Charlie Kirk, he spoke about that. But like you said, when he did it, though, he always managed to do it in a kind way, or in a powerful way. But he did it from the heart. It was not from anger. It wasn't from hey, we're going to get you now. Now you see the whole thing. No, it was about bringing us together, and putting good in the world. I've lost two brothers already, two younger brothers in my lifetime. And you say to yourself, you question once in a while, why am I here? And then stop asking why you're here, and start doing good for the time that you do have here. That the Maker has allowed you to be here still. Mm-hmm. And yeah, we can have our grief, we can have our sadness, but turn it into goodness. Turn it into something that the people who have left can say that their lives weren't in vain. And it's not easy. None of us are perfect. Right. That's why when I sit here and I'm allowed to speak on your podcast, yeah, I'm very, very thankful for it, very humbled for it. But I'm by no means, I'm a sinner myself and made mistakes, and will continue to. But my heart is, in the right direction. I feel, I know.
I had a discussion with my wife today, and it's so funny because when we started the podcast, I never really expected that we would have episodes that would be hard like this. But episode, I think it was 5, we had Kerry Herbine on. Do you know him at all? He used to be the CFO or the COO at the hospital.
Okay.
And he's now moved to Kentucky as a CEO role. Anyways, so he came on and talked about leadership and kind of broke my brain, talking mostly about emotional intelligence and assuming intent. And unbelievable how those two things filter into every other piece of life. It filters into this conversation. It filters into my work life, my home life, my parenting. It's wild to see people assuming intent on a daily, every second type of scale where you think you know what they mean or what the motivation is. And one of the things that Carrie would say was, you're pretty much always wrong when you start to assume or put labels on things that you know. Right. And man, good wisdom. Really good stuff there.
That's what humbles us, right? I mean, it reminds us to be humble. But anybody is wrong if they say they know it all or been through it all. And I should say, I know what's good for you.
Right.
I only know you as a person that you are, and we go off each other's own life experiences and what we can exchange. Having children, my heart went out. Mine's 19, and I still look at her, that night and had a conversation with her, and I'm thankful that I'm sitting there with her.
One of the parts too that, like, having kids will just put your whole life into perspective. Like, there's certain events in your life that does that. Will do that to your life. Mm-hmm. Getting married, maybe even, I don't know, buying your first home, not so much because that's kind of a thing. But as soon as you have children, your worldview just like changes. And I don't know, I'll watch a movie that I used to watch, and I'll watch it again now that I have kids, and I'm just a mess because I see my kids represented through the faces of other people. Right. My empathy level is so much higher. My grace for other people is so much higher, because like when you're not a parent, you're like, you look at people who are parenting, you're like, oh, I wouldn't parent like that. Or like, I don't know, assuming intent, right?
There you go.
Assuming emotional intelligence, all of these things.
Yeah.
Like just thinking, oh, well, that parent's doing that because X, Y, Z. Well, no, you're not in their position. You don't know their life story. You don't know their struggles. And then, then you go through all the same struggles. And you're like, oh man, I totally get it. So, but
I didn't become a father until 42. I was 42 years old. So my entire young life, was centered around, me, me. And after a while, you're like, hey, what a selfish thing to a degree. It is, And when you finally have the opportunity to share your life with something that you've created and we're given to, so you'll be created, okay?
Yep.
I should rephrase that. It's just an amazing responsibility and an amazing amount of love that all of a sudden comes out of you. Now, I do have to say, though, Brock, like we were talking about, how here we are sitting here talking as fathers, as good fathers, we hope, right? But we know across society, there are many who have had children that do not understand, that do not give that proper upbringing, that love, that discipline, and instill in their children. I used to think when I was younger that, hey, everybody knows what it's like to be a parent, like you were just talking about. I know what to do. Until you become one, and you go, wow, okay, now what, right?
Right. The more you know, the less you actually know. Is that what it is?
You start looking at mom and dad and going, aha, now I know why. Yeah.
Thank you for putting up with me. Yeah. Has that affected your outlook on people? Like you're in law enforcement, and your whole entire, 2/3 of your life has been in law enforcement. So has that impacted you? Because we had a debate recently on this podcast, and I kind of had people from a couple of guys from two different areas of thought, and it was really, really interesting. Great thought experiment. But we had in that podcast, one of the guests had spoken about what good law enforcement looks like, like on a personal level, what good work from a police officer looks like. And I agree. I think it's the empathetic approach to realizing that there's background stuff you don't know about. You can't assume about this person's intentions, what they've been through, their upbringing, all of these things. How does that translate to how you treat people?
Right.
And what fairness looks like. And so one of the things that he said was, well, sometimes the letter of the law is not always the right answer.
Well, we know that.
Yeah.
We've been through that. It's like you said, we don't know what that person's day was like before you encountered them, or what their life has been before we encountered them. We do know that there's a law written down, that we're supposed to enforce it. And this is what I love, and I'm so happy that when I became a police officer, I learned when they had discretion. Mm-hmm. that people, and I hope that the public will understand this. And if they don't, ask an officer, ask a judge what it means by when an officer has discretion of the law. It's a wonderful thing to have. And if you don't use it, you better learn to use it. Like I think in the situation that we're talking about right now, when you're saying.
Yeah. And basically and that's something that when I was a police officer, I tried to really do that. I tried to really kind of put myself, it's a hard balance. You put yourself in their shoes and kind of understand why they may be doing what they're doing. It's a whole psychological approach, while also being steadfast in your authority, which is a word that gets thrown around too much, or your state-given authority, to see through lies and to see through deception, and still being that line between chaos and order.
Right.
Talk about thin blue line, right? That's been completely distorted now, and you can't even hardly say that anymore. Don't look around in my gym too much. But there's definitely a line to being empathetic, weeding out the information that you have, and applying what you think discretionary enforcement looks like. And one of the ideas that this guest had was, like, sometimes the best answer for somebody who's struggling with something isn't to throw the book at them, is to mediate where grace looks. It's just like what you're talking about with discretion. Somebody just lost a loved one. They're on their way home from a funeral. They're going 10 miles an hour over the speed limit. Like, is that the time?
Right. No.
What is, so all of these things really, when it comes to policing, I'm just curious on your view, because there's lots of law enforcement, lots and lots of law enforcement, who are like black and white. Oh, sorry, you went 53 and a 50. That's a ticket. Yep. And you're like, really? Like, is that what we're doing?
Well,
so yeah.
Yeah, that's because some of those that do that, if you let the court straighten it out, that's not my thing. It's not my responsibility.
Sure.
But you are representation in the uniform of law enforcement from the top to the bottom, because the people encounter you first. Mm-hmm. They don't get to the judges unless they meet you, right? Yeah. And so your reflection upon all that, and that to me is a big responsibility, and you ought to really, there should show some humbleness in what they do. Listen, look at some of the Roman guards. When they and I don't want to get too religious on your podcast, with you, but when they came across,
for
it. When they met Jesus Christ, and what their beliefs were, or how they felt, inside. Some of them were not authoritative to him. They weren't saying, "Hey, we're going to take you out," and they weren't. They used their discretion, realizing, and I don't want to get too heavy.
That's an interesting example for sure. Yeah, I think, yes, to the point was that what good community policing looks like is not feeling like just an arm of the law, feeling like a part of the community that serves also and has compassion and doesn't assume intent. And that goes both ways. Like when an officer is involved in a shooting, there's an assuming intent problem in this country. Mm-hmm. And this will tie back into the conversation we're just having about, the incidents from Wednesday. You don't actually know Charlie Kirk.
Right.
You don't actually know him. Nope. Other than what he says and the body of work that he's produced. Nobody can say what his heart is except for him. So yeah, back to your point before, look at the body of work, decide for yourself, be smart, be rational. You can't take the law into your own hands or what you think the law is. Right. Like, take a step back. It's like not that big of a deal when you don't agree with somebody.
There you go. Yep.
And
it shouldn't come down to that. It shouldn't come down to that.
Did you get a chance to watch the press conference today?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So today was a press conference with the governor of Utah, and Kash Patel was there, director of FBI, and a few other people. The sheriff was there. So one of the key things, this press conference happened because they had arrested somebody that they believe is the offender here. And one of the things that happened was after they kind of laid out the whole case for why they think they have their person. The FBI director came out, had a few words, and then the governor came back out. I think it's Governor, let's just see his name, Spencer Cox from Utah. Probably had the best monologue recap I think possible.
Yeah.
Like, I've watched it twice.
It's something to hear his words.
Yeah.
You know, and he's a fairly young gentleman, you know, it's another thing too. So for him not to have the bitterness or the anger, and fall into that media play that they'd want to see. Yeah. Or the other side would say, yeah, let's see if we hurt him, you know. No, he showed fantastic resolve and you know,
just messaging.
Yes.
So we've had this podcast scheduled for well before this incident for you to come on and talk about, you know, specifically school safety and some different things. But I'm trying in my head to like come up with some of my own feelings and thoughts about how we move forward. What does it look like to move forward from something like this? And he just nailed it. Like I listened to it. I'm like, that's exactly, like, if you look at my notes for this episode right now, I'm like, that's it. One of the things that I really loved about what he said was, and it really resonated with me, was the impact of the violent imagery associated with this incident is not good for us.
Right.
There's something biologically that's just, we aren't supposed to be okay with that.
No, that's correct.
Yeah.
We're not. And we shouldn't be looking at it every day. We shouldn't be looking at every, you know, so many minutes or whatever, trying to, no, that's, you're absolutely right. That should be, again, even for, you know, police officers, military personnel, even though we're trained, as they say, or we try to, you know, to handle situations. So imagine what we feel and see. Then how does a civilian handle that with no training, no life experience in it, and to keep going back and get away from that stuff. You know, there's a reason. Brocked on a little humorous note, like I always go fall back on this. That's why police officers go and take care of crime. Firemen put out fires. EMTs take care of people. Yep. You don't send a cop to put a fire out. Mm-hmm. Most likely, you know what I mean? I mean, we could go try, but we're going to do it completely different, right? Yeah. You know, and you don't take an EMT to go and chase down a bad guy and take somebody's life. Yeah. They're trained to save a life, you know? So if it puts that in perspective in a simple way, you know?
Yeah, no, it does. I think what I'll do is I'm going to play a little bit of a clip to that.
Yeah.
And then we can kind of react to it and I'll put it in later. But I want to refresh that in my memory because everything about what he was saying was just like spot on.
Yes.
And I don't know how, I don't want to do it. I don't want to not do it justice. So let's see if we can get it on here. All right. So here it is. So this is the governor of Utah. And so just really puts together, you know, kind of a good summary of this. I think
he did
to go forward.
Yes.
You know, like at some point there has to be an off ramp. There has to be a way to make sure that we do everything we can to not let this happen again. Right. Either side. And just, this is so powerful. So I wanted to play this for folks. So here we go.
I don't want to get too preachy, but I think it's important that we, with eyes wide open, understand what's happening in our country today. I've heard people say, well, why are we so invested in this? There's violence happening all across our country, and violence is tragic everywhere, and every life taken is a child of God who deserves our love and respect and dignity. This is certainly about the tragic death, political assassination of Charlie Kirk. But it is also much bigger than an attack on an individual. It is an attack on all of us. It is an attack on the American experiment. It is an attack on our ideals. This cuts to the very foundation of who we are, of who we have been, and who we could be in better times. Political violence is different than any other type of violence for lots of different reasons. One, because in the very act that Charlie championed of expression, that freedom of expression that is enshrined in our founding documents, in having his life taken in that very act, makes it more difficult for people to feel like they can share their ideas, that they can speak freely. We will never be able to solve all the other problems, including the violence problems that people are worried about, if we can't have a clash of ideas safely and securely. Even, especially those ideas with which you disagree. That's why this matters so much. Over the last 48 hours, I have been as angry as I have ever been, as sad as I have ever been. And it was, as anger pushed me to the brink, it was actually Charlie's words that pulled me back. I'd like to share some of those. And specifically right now, if I could, I need to talk to the young people in our state, in my state, and all across the country. As President Trump reminded me, he said, you know who really loved Charlie? The youths. And he's right. Young people loved Charlie, and young people hated Charlie. And Charlie went into those places anyway. And these are the words that have helped me. Charlie said, when people stop talking, that's when you get violence. He said, the weak can never forgive. Forgiveness is the attribute of the strong. The only way out of the labyrinth of suffering is to forgive. Welcome without judgment, love without condition, forgive without limit. He said, always forgive your enemies. Nothing annoys them so much. A few months ago, I referenced this last night, Charlie posted to social media, when things are moving very fast and people are losing their minds, it's important to stay grounded. Turn off your phone, read scripture, spend time with friends, and remember, internet fury is not real life. It's going to be okay. He again said, when you stop having a human connection with someone you disagree with, it becomes a lot easier to commit violence. He said, what we as a culture have to get back to is being able to have a reasonable agreement, where violence is not an option. Now, again, to my young friends out there, you are inheriting a country where politics feels like rage. It feels like rage is the only option. But through those words, we have a reminder that we can choose a different path. Your generation has an opportunity to build a culture that is very different than what we are suffering through right now. Not by pretending differences don't matter, but by embracing our differences and having those hard conversations. I think we need more moral clarity right now. I hear all the time that words are violence. Words are not violence. Violence is violence. And there is one person responsible for what happened here. And that person is now in custody and will be charged soon and will be held accountable.
That's probably pretty good there.
Yeah.
So a couple of things. Internet fury is not real life.
That's right.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that need that message right now. Like, go on Facebook, you know.
You know, I fall back again, a little humor there. You know, Mel Gibson, telephone tough guy, you know, keyboard, you know, warrior. Yeah, you're all good at it until you meet face to face.
Yep.
Right? You know, so like you said, Brock, it's been a tough couple of days, hasn't it? You know? Yeah. Anybody that's been a person of faith, anybody that's been a person interested in politics, anybody that's been a person in law enforcement, you know, just to watch all that went on. It's been a hard couple of days in the world. Yeah. And but one thing I think it shows that most part of humanity, is that we're resilient. We do turn to each other, which is a darn good thing still. We tend to, if we stick to our biblical foundations, that violence is not always the answer to resolve a situation.
Yeah.
So,
one of the other points that he brought up was words are not violence. Violence is violence. And this is kind of like been a cultural shift for the narratives, I guess, the last maybe 10 years or so. It's like silence is violence. Okay, well, if you don't speak up about it, then that's bad. And, and then what you say equates violence. And it's just no. Just no. I don't know how you could be in a democratic society or a constitutional republic and have that view. If you don't agree with Charlie Kirk, then you have to combat his ideas with better ideas.
There you go.
And you flesh them out. And the only way to do that is that kind of discourse.
Or don't listen. You see, you can turn something off. You can walk away. Yeah, I find it so, hypocritical when you hear one president use the words and say, elections have consequences. And yet that certain person brought so many undue consequences upon this country with the rhetoric that particular party used, or that particular people, that follow that used. And when we turn around and say it, or, another side, now all of a sudden we're the bad guys using that rhetoric.
Yeah.
And it's still, so again, it goes back to, look at things on your own. Don't always take for blind, reason that's what it's there, and reach into your heart,
Yep. Yeah. What another part that he kind of mentioned there, and I had in my notes before he had that interview, was like unplug, disconnect, go offline a little bit more. If you're so consumed by having to have like an opinion about everything, or if you're so consumed about arguing with somebody on Facebook, or like, take a break. It doesn't, some of the stuff that is so contentious doesn't really affect you that much. There's definitely a case for like speaking truth. I totally understand all of that. But on every single issue, arguing with people on social media and politics aside, like, it gets crazy in there. It's just not a good place.
Yeah.
He went on to discuss, the governor there, about how social media is just, it's a sickness. It's a bad thing. It's not working. You need some space. Yeah.
And yet, not everybody is on this social media. Not everybody is involved in it. And the ones that are the ones that unfortunately at times don't know how to handle it. Like you said, how to get away from it, how to put it down. But you need to, and especially the young people. It's so ingrained that you can't live without these today, or without a laptop in front of you, or whatever they call them, And we can. Now, granted, some people rely upon them, as we know, for work and such as what we're doing right now. But like you said, for everyday conversations, let's get back to this.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
Especially when you don't agree on things. Like, I think most people come to a disagreement usually with how do I win this, instead of, maybe assuming there's something you can learn.
Yeah, how can we make each other better?
Maybe you could learn something or become better. Right. Mm-hmm. I totally agree. Last 15 minutes, let's try to just shift a little bit. Originally, when I asked you to come on, I had kind of had the thought of talking about school safety, because that's kind of a hot button issue.
Yeah.
Actually was the hot button issue, I would say, before Wednesday. And actually on Wednesday also, there was a school shooting on Wednesday at a high school. And I just kind of want to get your kind of overall thoughts on, is this something that we can insulate ourselves from or protect our kids from?
Yeah, I mean, yes. I mean, there's let's just say, the security aspect of it. Physical hard security. What we can do to, locking the doors, having proper IDs. Not letting people in that say, "Hey, I got to get in. Can you let me in this one time?" And then that one particular security spot you have fails because a person says, "Well, I thought." No, follow that procedure, stick to it.
Yep.
And in schools that's so important. With things like that. I know. I made the statement that while we're near that, I said, "Why don't we arm some teachers?" Now, when I say that and it gets people going, that's why I want to clarify that people understand that. I'm not saying that a teacher has to be told, you're going to carry a gun, you're going to carry into this and that. What I'm saying is give that school the option, give the teachers the option to be able to come to the superintendent and say, hey, I am very proficient, I'm ex-military, or I'm a competitive shooter. I would feel that I can help us stop a threat. God forbid it comes here. And would you trust me, to do that? And then put a policy in place, but let them have the choice to do it. I'm not saying, people like, oh, he's going to arm teach. No. Let that be a choice of somebody. Mm-hmm. We as parents, when we send our kids off to school, we expect an education to be given and taught to them, but we also are letting the same way with the school bus. That child boards the bus, that safety is now in the driver's hands. We look at that driver as he better be qualified or she better be qualified. You better get to my kid to school safely because we trust in that. That's your job. Same thing with school teacher. Not just there just to educate, they're there to protect our children while they're there. As they would theirs if they were there. They'd feel the same way. It's a responsibility they don't want, but by taking that teaching job on, it is. So.
Yeah. So would the critical side of that argument would be, the people who would disagree with that side of the argument would say bringing more guns into a school, not a good potential outcome.
I believe the governor said that in a comment when I made on the news.
Did she?
Yeah, she did. Yeah, she chimed on and said,
Governor Hochul, you can come on this podcast anytime. I think my view is probably a little bit different. I'm actually a NASRO certified school resource officer nationally. It's probably not good certification anymore. It's been a while, but
still good.
Still on the resume.
Yes, sir.
My opinion on it would be that could create some difficulty in practical application by allowing teachers to carry on school property, school grounds. It would take an immense amount of vetting, and I'm just trying to think of from a father perspective, even, what I would feel comfortable with. And I think that's kind of what probably most people's contentions would be with arming teachers.
A teacher, correct.
Or a teacher or whoever. So I think that personally, I'm not in a leadership position. Nobody asked my opinion, but I'm going to give it anyways. So, with my background with working in schools, I worked for the last couple of years that I was there in schools, in and out. Is that not something that like even local area legislators would consider, having law enforcement school resource officer in the school? I know right now there's kind of something like that.
We do
specifically at.
Oh yeah, we have SROs in our from the sheriff's office. Okay. We don't have that in the Village of Lowville there at the academy. It's a different type of officer.
Okay.
He's not with the sheriff's office, but he's an officer there.
Yep.
It works, but like you're saying, the legislators get it. Okay, here's what it comes down to. Unfortunately, when you want to get more of those people, it's the cost that's involved.
Sure.
They seem to look at the cost. They seem to look at we have to also have to pay them a salary. Then we have to pay their medical. We have to pay their their everything.
Expensive. Yeah.
But what's awful funny is that when something goes down, all of a sudden is forgotten, and it's like, well, why didn't we have this? Why weren't there more? And you don't mean to point the finger, but you have to say, go back and listen to yourselves. You put a price. You put a price on that. Are you comfortable with that? Can you live with putting a price on it? Personally, I can't.
Right.
Like I say, to me, there's no price on that's on life. It's an insurmountable amount.
Yeah.
You do everything you can to protect that life. Now with the schools, there's a lot more common sense things we could be doing, but at the same time, we fell into the guise of where that might offend somebody. Well, guess what? That's the exact person you want to be offended. So wake up and realize that we're talking about here with the attack on Mr. Kirk. That mindset of that person. I said, why aren't we putting out signs, which I'm hoping in the near future we're going to be doing this. We've had some good discussions on it. And I want to stop discussing it and start applying it. Put that sign outside the building that says, armed people on this campus. That's it.
Deterrence.
That's done.
Yeah, I mean, as a father, and I know lots of people in the community, is it a messaging problem with funding? Because I don't think I could go to one person. I know the school budgets are crazy, and I don't know what the school budget is, millions and millions and millions of dollars, and we really can't afford this, or we can't ask taxpayers for a $60,000 salary a year with benefits, really, to ensure safety. That part of it just seems wild to me. If we're going to say that there's no price, right, on our children's future and our children's safety, which I completely agree with, then put our money where our mouth is.
Right.
Like, there should be at every single school, in my opinion, and a lot of ours had this. They had security personnel watching cameras the entire time. They had at least one law enforcement officer roaming halls, checking doors, security checks all day long. Relations with the kids. All of that stuff is so unbelievably valuable, and it's a good resource to have, and we just don't fund it.
No.
And then, like you said before, when something happens, then we're like, oh, well, we should have done something. Well, this is kind of back to Charlie Kirk's whole thing. Like, if you don't speak out, you don't pursue truth here,
right,
or good policy solutions, then they don't happen. And that's the truth.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I would call on anybody like, hey, maybe we could revisit the school budget or find state funding somehow, or work the tax code to help fund these things.
Right.
Park a police car outside.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't want to give up too much, but you mentioned these things, and it's already, yes.
Okay. So some of the stuff's moving, but like, Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro talks about when he was a political commentator on the right, again, conservative, talked about growing up in a Jewish school and how there was lots of threats all the time, and how there was a offender who ended up going and committing an atrocious act that actually stopped at his school first, realized there was armed security, moved on to the next one.
There you go.
Like that. And I just don't know, nationwide, that should be the policy.
It sure
nationwide.
Should. Yeah.
You know what? You want to come here? You're going to have to go through.
Yeah. This to get to it.
Yep. For sure.
And if you want to take that, then that's on you with the consequences that occur after the fact that you're dead,
and
I would think
arrest. I would think that that's probably the best, because then you're also talking about officers with a lot of training, and an officer who's in a school will know the kids, will know the teachers, will know the building better than anybody else.
That's right.
There's consultations that you can do for that, and that seems like an easy. Everybody can be on board with that. Almost everybody can be on board with that.
You would think, Brock, you would, and I have to say, like you say, after going to to several budgets, hearings and meetings, you'd be surprised at what the mentality, how they think in the end, and what they don't realize that they're willing to sacrifice until that happens.
Right.
It's
an unfortunate reality of the time that we're living in, and anytime something like that happens, it breaks my heart. It makes you want to do something. Like, it makes you want to go out and protect somebody, or volunteer, or do something, whatever. Become part of a special response team, anything, whatever it means to combat this kind of epidemic that seems to be happening, and it's happening, seems like more and more.
That's a discussion that how do you want to say? I don't want to go down a rabbit hole. But I have my theories on that too, and why are they happening? Why? Pardon me. With such frequency, and such violence. Where are these younger individuals getting this idea? And there's it's a societal. We have to start getting back to something else.
A lot deeper rooted causes for these things.
Yes,
right?
sir.
It's not a singular response. It's not a past gun ban legislation. It's not. That is a whole nother conversation for another time. And honestly, some of the nasty vitriolic rhetoric coming from people who oppose Charlie Kirk. He's pro Second Amendment guy. It was just disgusting things.
Yes, it was. Yep.
And
it was.
Now there's a lot of also center right figures who are kind of ramping up the rhetoric too, and I don't like that either.
I agree with you.
It's we're at war now. Like, guys, calm down. Yeah. It's just completely irresponsible, and we're regarding root causes for kids, I mean, we have a huge problem with disaffected youth, and that's for a variety of reasons. You touched on fatherlessness. You know, medications are a problem. Antidepressants are a problem. And I think we have to do a better job on all fronts. You know, the overwhelming answer to this stuff needs to be, how can we come together to make sure that we're all thriving together? And what does that even look like? I don't know.
Yeah. Parenting 101. You know, if we can do it, that's the way that our Creator intended it to be. And then having a good moral ground set that you're going out from there. We don't have that these days. We just don't have it.
Yeah.
You know, and the one, and I call it a crutch because you constantly hear it afterwards. Well, they were mentally ill. Okay, I'm not a psychiatrist, psychologist, whatever you want to say, but I can tell you this. In training, whether it be police, whether it be military, the mindset to go out and take a life is extreme, as you know. Okay, you've been trained as well too. Is extreme to make that decision. It takes a lot. It's not a split second thing where people think, "Oh, it's a split second thing." No, either you have it in you or you do not. For these people to say, anybody to say, well, they had mental illness, they chose to go. They literally made that violent choice. It wasn't like they were just like, you know, upset. No, they know what they're doing. Otherwise, they wouldn't go with a gun and bullets. If they wanted to get, you know, a point across and they were angry or not mad or weren't intending to hurt somebody, you'd go there with either flowers, books, chocolates, balloons, whatever. But no, you're showing up at a location full well knowing that you're going to take a life. That's not crazy. That's an intent that you knew you were going to do. They may have issues, yes, but they had to make that decision. And nobody makes that decision easily.
Right. Yeah. I guess like a closing message would be this: we get to decide right now, with all the stuff in the news the past couple of weeks, and especially this week, where we go from here. Do you decide this is a good off-ramp, or do you escalate things? Obviously, there's just no place for any of this. I just don't. It rocks everybody to their core. I think we need to be very careful with each other, especially on social media. We need to not be putting more fanciful context into somebody's interpretation of things. Right. Oh, well, this is politically motivated. This is you know, the reason that you're not talking about somebody else's, some other incident, and you're talking about the Charlie Kirk incident is because you don't care about that incident over there. It's not true. It's just completely backwards from anything you said. Back to the episode, assuming intent. You don't actually know why I feel this way about this certain instance or this other one. Any taking of life, and the governor said it, is just tragic and absolutely should be dealt with as tragic. But we're in such a political sphere now where it's all scoring points, and it's all like, oh, well, I know people who post political stuff every single day, and then when something goes counter to what they're posting, all of a sudden they don't post that day. Well, be consistent, you know. And there's also a very big difference between somebody who's posting all the time and decides not to post something significant versus somebody who doesn't post all the time, sees something that impacts them, and then feels like they are going to post something. I don't ever post anything, right? But feels an obligation for whatever reason to share something, then they're attacked. You know, I just don't, on both sides of it, people need to unplug. People need to take a step back. And if you felt anything other than empathy for the situation, sympathy for the family, you know, then you've lost a part of yourself.
Oh yeah, I'm desensitized.
And I just don't, like, you have to find a part of that in your soul. Like, there's something missing there. You've become too far entrenched in this thing. Yeah. It's time to pull back.
Absolutely.
And until we can do that, then we're gonna struggle, and there's gonna be more problems, and there's gonna be more issues.
I'd like to believe, and I want to keep that in my heart, that, you know, we don't see something like this happen again. And I won't say any more than that. Let's hope it doesn't happen again. I'm listening to what you said, you know, about social media and what we post and stuff. And like I told you earlier, I haven't posted anything yet. Been a few days. I've been wanting to digest it. I'm going to post something eventually on my Facebook page. And again, when I do, it's not going to be violent. It's not going to be hate. And that's what we need to be responsible of. So, that's why I'm taking my time here to digest it, think about it, and make sure it comes out in the best possible way without inciting something bad.
And that's the important part. And it's up to each individual how we go about this. And you're in charge of you, Sheriff, you control you, and I control me, and I get to decide how this is going to affect me, how am I going to let the change be a positive change or not? Right. And everybody has that same exact option in front of them. And I would love to see people coming together. I would love this to be a unifying moment for everybody. I love seeing there's a lot of leaders, Democrat leaders, especially because Charlie was a conservative, who are coming out and just completely this is not okay.
Right.
I don't agree with Charlie on a lot of things, but this is not okay. And why that even needs to be a thing of contention, I don't agree with him anyways, that whatever. Yeah. But how do we get to a place where the preceding language, narrative, interactions in a society can be the counter of what leads to something like this?
Right.
And it takes each individual deciding, I'm not going to be a part of this evil. I'm not going to be a part of this cycle, this machine, and detach a little bit, and keep track of your own morals, your own values. Make sure that you're representing that.
Brock, can you just, if I can hit it real quick, where do we start at? Well, conversations, how we keep it civil. It goes all the way up. Ready? Town board meeting, a county meeting, a state meeting, then we get to our federal stuff, our legislature, our governor, our congressmen, our senators. When they stop setting the example, when they start showing discourse and hollering and throwing punches or just words back, hateful words, or when they use rhetoric that I'm going to hurt you, what does that send to everybody else? Well, if they can do it, we can do it. Yeah. No, we should. It's just an example from the ground up, the town meeting forward. Yep. We have to have more of having that civil discourse. One thing I can't stand as the sheriff that I see when it comes to free speech and things, and I get it. I get if you're a council person, they hate it when somebody comes to the meeting and talks past the 2-minute warning. Well, sometimes maybe let that person speak a little longer. Okay, It might diffuse that anger, and it's something we should be tolerable of, because that is exactly what many people fought for and died for, so we could have that civil dialogue and not agree, but come to an amendment, come to an okay, we may not solve this today, let's come back another day, but we talked. That's we have to have the tolerance that way. Yep. And I don't mean we let somebody come in and spit, throw things. No, then you literally are abusing that right. Freedom of speech. Right. But I think people understand what I just said, what I come across. So I
think you just said that perfectly, honestly. And, that's a great point. I just think that we have to come together on this stuff. Like, there's been a lot of unifying moments where, the political violence in the 60s, like, there was a lot of good stuff that came after that. And I'm really hopeful that people can start seeing each other through the rhetoric and connecting on a personal level. Most people that I know, possibly in the entire country, have good intentions. They want to see things go well. Where it gets muddied is when, the prescriptions for those problems don't align, right. And then name calling happens and all of these other things. But I would love it to be a good thing. I think we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Faith.
Yep. I have hope.
There you go.
In it. So
yep.
We'll see how that goes. Sheriff, I've got something for you.
Oh boy.
Make sure I get the right one. I got something for you from my friends over at Azahar Roast House.
All right.
Thank you, Brian. Yes, that's for you from them. Thanks for coming. There's some coffee in there and some other stuff. So they,
nice.
They
smells good. I smell it already.
Does.
Oh yeah, I like that.
It's
wow,
the good
I can
stuff.
smell that.
They're great. They're right in the area here. So check that out.
Cool.
Coffee and cops. I mean, that
There
doesn't
you
go
go.
together,
We
right?
have to
Couldn't
have
have
it. That's
been
right.
anything better. But I really hope that people get like a unifying message from this. Like, really, guys, stop assuming people's intent. You know, come together. We're all human. We're all Americans. If you're listening to this in America, I guess. And we're countrymen. Yeah.
At least, and we have that responsibility to set that example.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like you say, I'm blessed to sit here right now with you, but I have a responsibility to do it properly.
Yeah.
I don't come on, don't come on here. We don't talk, willy-nilly. It's So
yeah, and it's a fundamental part of American values. And I think that that's what Charlie stood for.
Oh, he did.
And I think that that's the kind of what we want to see. Nobody is downplaying any other incidents. Oh. Violence happens all the time. It's devastating. I wish it never happened. But how do we get solutions? We talk about it. We figure out how we can come together. And I think that that's really important. So
if I could wrap up one more thing for I just want to say possible public service announcement. I didn't get to talk. We hit on too much of the school safety. If anybody has any questions or great suggestions that they want to help out with, call me at the sheriff's office. I'd love to hear from you.
Well, and that's the other part too, is like, you don't come to solutions without ideas. Right. If you don't hash out the ideas and fine tune the ideas, then you have nothing.
Well, it's like you said, we may have good intentions, but we don't have that, earlier. You're right. So
have the courage to display that. Have the courage to come up with something, as long as you also communicate that your intentions are right. And I think that those are huge learning opportunities for all of us, and a great message for anybody. So if you have any suggestions on what you think school safety should look like, it doesn't hurt anybody to, in an appropriate manner, a respectful manner, give ideas. Yeah. Let's tone back the discourse a bit, and tone back the rhetoric a bit, and just be Americans. Let's figure some of this stuff out ourselves.
100%.
All right, good. Awesome, Sheriff. I appreciate you coming on. This will be the third time. You're like a repeat now. You might as well just get a chair here and just be a co-host. But I hope that we'll do this again. I'm sure we'll have lots more to talk about in the future, and I really appreciate your time.
Thank you. I appreciate you all the time. I just love this. I do. And thanks for the opportunity very much.
Good. Awesome. All right, folks. So that's it for us, and we'll catch you on the next one.